Astro Royale is an action shonen from Ken Wakui, the same mangaka who brought us Tokyo Revengers. Despite the disappointment that many in the community felt about how Tokyo Revengers ended, there was still some excitement leading up to the release of Astro Royale. I mean, I think that we can all agree that Wakui nailed at least the first few arcs of Tokyo Revengers, so it was fair to say that at least we would get a pretty decent beginning of this manga and then maybe experience a drop off later on. I mean, that is a reasonable expectation, right? Well, when Astro Royale was being published, I really wasn't reading manga at that time. Now, that is not to say that I did not know about Astro Royale, just at the time I wasn't reading manga and I didn't really feel like reading it. But I did have some interest in this as I was like a little bit of a Tokyo Revengers season 1 fan. But to be quite honest with you, that's pretty much where it stopped. But then I saw that it had been canceled and that piqued my interest again. It was getting a English volume release, and so I was like, well, maybe this would be a good time for me to check out the story that, I thought about a little bit back in the day, but never did really get into. Now, upon reading the first volume, I could pretty much figure out why this book got canceled. It really did lack a lot of the imagination and emotional weight of Tokyo Revengers, and it just feels kind of stale and formulaic. It's almost like Wakui was trying to make his version of a shonen hit, but there's this little something that shifts in volume 2 of this manga, specifically around chapter 15. In just 3 chapters, the characters kind of start to click for just a moment. Suddenly, there's something to care about, something to look forward to. So today, I want to explore those chapters that really turned what felt like a paint by the numbers shonen into something a little bit more interesting and actually made me excited for the next volume of this book. Now, it would be a little disingenuous for me to say that it all started in chapter 15 because it really begins with chapter 1. Now, chapter 1 is where we're going to be introduced to our main character, the principal cast, as well as the story setup. Now, I'm going to butcher this name. His name is like Hibaru, but I'm going to call him Baru for the time being. So let's say Baru. So Baru Yutsurugi is the only biological son of Yakuza boss Kongo Yutsurugi. Now, he's got this kind of carefree attitude, but a real strong sense of duty, determined to carry on his father's ideals. His father, now he wasn't your typical Yakuza boss. He did show some form of compassion and really felt like being a leader was done through lifting up the people, not necessarily taking from them. With that, instead of instilling fear, Kongo decided that he would adopt some wayward children, some street kids, like whatever they were. He was adopting these different kids and bringing them on to be basically his underbosses in his family. And so with that said, Baru ended up with several different brothers, so to speak. And they were all brought in from various different ways, whether it be, from uniting other gangs and bringing them into the fold, or it be just street kids that, he called himself helping out. So fast forward some years and Kongo has died. So now the family is fractured. So basically Kongo has been setting up Baru to be the leader of this organization. An all-out civil war begins because nobody respects Baru. So now you have all these different factions inside of the gang from the different brothers that are all trying to take control because they don't respect Baru and they know that Terusu is just a puppet leader, basically here to serve Baru. So they're like, nah, we ain't here for none of that. We're trying to take over, all right? Baru is like, man, nah, chill. I just really want to bring everybody together. I just want my brothers back. Like, that's all I'm really looking forward to, so we could do this together. And of course, Baru knows that if the gang is running wild like that, and because there are so many different clashing ideologies, it can't be good for the people that they oversee. Now, in the midst of that, Japan gets hit with this massive meteor that causes the whole thing to flip upside down because all of these people end up getting these powers. Now, how they get these powers is kind of convoluted. It's attached to an object that has some level of significance to you, coupled with whatever that person would have wished on that falling star for, which is crazy to think is coming right at you and you're gonna wish on it. But I don't know. I mean, I think most people would wish to be alive, but nah, people wish for all these quirky things, and that's kind of what's reflected in their powers, at least what I gather from the first 2 volumes. So now Baru and Tetsuru, who, like I said, is his right-hand man, have their hands completely full. Not only are they trying to reunite the gang and get everybody together, but they have to contend with the fact that now you have all of these different gang members who have their different powers and are running rampant through the streets. So it is is a crisis from their particular perspective. And then you just couple that with the general immaturity of Baru, and it's just kind of like a disaster waiting to happen. So with that said, it is a pretty generic shonen story. Even still, it's a proven formula that has had a lot of success over time. So it's understanding why he would want to construct this type of story, especially after coming off of something that was a bit more gritty like Tokyo Revengers, something that's a little bit more broad and accessible, and just build your own characters inside of a template that kind of works. I get that. I get that. So you got to ask yourself, with something that's tried and true and proven like that, where did we go wrong with this story, and how did we get to the point where it ended up feeling so generic? So first of all, these characters suck, and I don't say that lightly. I feel like Baru is really your textbook shonen protagonist. He feels like he's trying to be a cross between Luffy and Naruto, which are both great characters in their own right, but Baru just does not live up to that type of scrutiny. Whereas with these characters, when we're introduced to them, we are given a reason to root for them. We're just not dropped into their situation and told that they're like the best. For Baru, when we're introduced to him, we don't get any motivation for him beyond, I want to reunite my family and I want to live up to my dad's ideals. And mind you, we don't even really have a clear idea of what his dad's ideals are. In fact, even at the end of volume 2, we still don't have a clear one. We have to kind of see it from his perspective. And that's a troubling thing, the fact that we don't really get any actions or any like peaks or views or any breadcrumbs to kind of back this up, at least not until many chapters down the line. At most, he gets into a small scuffle at the end of volume 1, which turns out to be relatively inconsequential in the grand scheme of things. And it kind of sucks that this story does not give us a reason to root for him beyond the fact that he is the protagonist of the story, and that's pretty much it, at least for that first volume, which was about 7 or 8 chapters. Now, beyond the characters, one of the biggest misses is the power system in and of itself. Powers linked to random objects, that's cool, but I just feel like Gachiakata is already doing that better. And granted that these 2 books came out at different times, but why would you read this when you have Gachiakata here that's doing something similar in a much better way? And the way that Astro Royale does it is in a painfully boring way. These powers could not be more uninteresting. Take, for example, there is literally someone who shows up that has the power to make 4-leaf clovers or something along that way. Not even like a luck power. It's just like this most useless, pointless power. And it is used to drive home a point, which we will talk about later. But still, the fact that this exists, come on. Our main character, he has a power arm, and the most that he does to it is punch things as hard as he possibly can. There's no variation, there's no switch up, there's nothing. It's just that. One of the other main characters has an energy shield. Fantastic. I think he throws it one time at the end. That's awesome. No great wow powers in here to be mentioned at all. I think even when we get to the end of volume 2 with things spice up, the powers are still relatively mediocre, or at least something you've seen before or executed in a much better way. Then we get down to the writing itself, which, say what you want about Tokyo Revengers, especially how it ended. And I'm not saying that this dialogue was realistic. I have yet to come across manga dialogue that feels like real people say this stuff. However, I would gladly argue that this is a terribly written book. And that is not to diss the mangaka, because I think Tokyo Revengers, they did great work on it. Even the ending, which some people don't like, I was okay with it. And that's because it gave us a reason to be connected to what these characters were trying to accomplish, their goals. It gave them an arc, so to speak. I mean, when we first meet Takamichi, he is this type of character. He's like a little bit of a shut-in, like a bit of a loser, like whatever he got going on, missed opportunities in life or whatever. He gets his power to go back in time, and he sees a way where he can change himself and go after the things that he wanted to go after, right? And also make a change in the world, right? And he takes that opportunity. But you see kind of in a very short period of time who he is and who he wants to be and how he's getting there, his motivation to get there, right? This book just just kind of meanders. So for example, with the very first time that we meet Baru, he is going to go get basically extortion money or protection money or whatever from an elderly shop owner, right? And it is like really a setup to subvert your expectations, because what he ends up taking from the shop owner is just like a penny piece of candy or whatever. So it's supposed to be showing that he is like this benevolent leader or whatever who is out here to protect the people for nothing, right? But why? You know what I mean? Like, how do we get here, right? It said nothing about him. He just like did this thing, and there was like no reason to invest in this action at all. And I'm okay with doing like the breadcrumb thing, but that's such a minor thing, and I feel like something that would work better as a payoff than a setup. I don't know, because that just didn't. The only reason why I'm thinking about it is because in the grand scheme of things, I'm like, I get what you were trying to do here, but it doesn't make any sense. I just went back to it after reading it and being like, this book is just like not very good. This was a prime example of that, where you did a payoff at the beginning as a setup. Just weird. Now, there are other moments like this sprinkled throughout the manga, which can be kind of frustrating, but it does feel like something starts to shift in the chapters leading up to chapter 15. So thinking around chapter 10, 11, like just that kind of build up to 15, where I think we really get the best shining moments of this manga so far. So what was that shift? Now, Baru, in an effort to stop one of his brothers from terrorizing the territory that he oversees, comes across a random girl, the four-leaf clover girl we were kind of talking about earlier a little bit, or alluded to earlier. Now, she's on her way to the hospital to see her mom, and she is being attacked by one of Baru's brother's underbosses. I think his name was like Guido or something like that. So he's attacking this girl, basically bullying her, taking away her anchor point, the thing that like lets her use her powers or whatever, because they're weak, basically reflecting Baru's brother's ideology, right? So he's like, yeah, you're weak, I need that. Baru decides that he's going to stop everything that he's doing. They're on their way to confront the brother, and they're like, nah, I gotta stop and do this because I gotta protect the people. He stops what he's doing, gets out, and helps this girl out. So now when he steps in to help her out, they are showing us what he's about. They're showing us his kindness. They're showing us his determination. They're showing us that he is really here to protect the people. That's the type of payoff you want. It gives us something to root for. And I think the big thing is his willingness to stop the mission to help someone. This finally tells us, after 10 plus chapters, who he is. Just this little moment gives you a lot of payoff without all of the lip service trying to tell us, and then showing us a character that's a little different than what they're telling us. They show us this character in all of his glory, and that drives up my investment in them. Now, from this point, the story really does start to build up some momentum, and we get some really great moments. We get Terasu's backstory, in which we really find out why Baru is really that guy. Like, we see the work ethic that he puts in. We see how much he cares about his brothers, how he can identify their pain, how he has that empathy, how he really has all of those things he needs to lead this gang into the next phase of what they're going to be. We see it play out in this backstory, something that I feel like really should have played out earlier in the book, so that we could once again drive that investment in Baru. And this is why this particular few chapters are like the best that this book has had to offer, because it's everything that I feel like we should have seen earlier in the story. And so all of this is going to drive us to one of the manga's very first major conflicts, which once again is crazy. We are 10 plus chapters in, and we're just getting our first major conflict. And this is like with this underboss Guido, right? So it's not even like he's going through the first challenge of his first brother. Like, you would expect him to have to kind of run a gauntlet a little bit, but it feels like this is something that we should have seen be the buildup in volume 1. Here we are in volume 15, and we're finally getting that buildup. But It's a really, really great section of things that drove interest to get us to this point, to this payoff that we're gonna get. Now, this turns out to be a very brutal battle, and I think it's something that was kind of missing from this book, like a real kind of knockdown, drag out, like you don't know how our protagonist is gonna find their way out. And he does through a combination of the power of friendship and his just kind of general grit and determination. He does employ a little bit of the empathy that we saw in Terasu's backstory, that we saw when he was helping out that girl. So once again, payoff after payoff after payoff from that little bit of setup just with that girl. You got the immediate payoff, then we get the payoff in the backstory, and then we're gonna get another payoff here where he's able to look Guido in the eyes and see his pain and tell him, hey, this must have been really hard for you. I'm sorry that you've been going through this. Like, hey, you know, I want to see us all through. I want all of my brothers to be able to thrive, and being able to like have that connection, and for Guido to be able to see that leadership and that passion in his eyes was once again another major payoff. And so we get to see this build to this next major battle, and probably the first kind of boss that he's gonna have to fight, his first boss fight with Shio, who is already demonstrated to be very powerful. But this is a critical fight for Baru because they have an ideology difference. Once again, great writing in this section. You have built and built and built. You've seen his ideology play out. You've seen him live his values, not just say his values, but live those values. And now we get to see those values tested. All of this happens in the back half of volume 2. If we had got this kind of writing to begin the book, right, it would be a much better book because now his ideology is being tested. Shio believes in ruling through power, survival of the fittest. We don't need the weakest because they are pointless. What we need is strong powers so that we can rule and we can lead the people through force. Whereas clearly Baru's perspective is very different. And I love being able to see this ideology clash. We see a little bit of it with Guido, and now we're going to see it play out in full with Shio. And we're going to get to see these two things clash in real time. Which one is the right ideology, which, you know, we can probably see how this is going to play out. And what's going to be interesting is his goal is to bring his brothers over to his side. How is he going to convince Shio to come over to his side? Or is he going to have to take his brother out, right? Because that's a possibility too, but that's not a part of his ideology. Here we have all of those things leading us into understanding and wanting to know more about this character and know how he is going to be able to apply his beliefs to this battle. And so, like I said, now that we understand a little bit better what Baru is about, our investment is inherently going to rise here. We really want to see how this is going to play out. And I found this really, really interesting, right? Not necessarily the scenario that I'm telling you about Baru, Shio, and all that stuff, right? That stuff is cool, but you can find that just about anywhere. Like, it still isn't necessarily groundbreaking work, right? What it is, though, is good character work. And it's interesting when an author can kind of find a connection point with their audience, a place where your audience is going to care more about those characters, and it's a make or break point for them. This manga is pretty uninteresting for the first like 12 or 13 chapters, and it's like the mangaka found a little groove, a little pocket, like a little space where they got some of the best writing that the series has so far in that little section. And I just thought it was interesting, kind of as a reader, seeing that moment click. And I just wanted to highlight like that moment working for the book. Now, did the mangaka find more success or find more pockets that they could work in, or more ways that they, you know, can make these characters interesting? I don't know, but it did get canceled. It only got 6 volumes. I forgot how many chapters it was, but I mean, a very short series for something that clearly seems like it was intended to run for a very, very long time. That just leads me to believe that, you know, maybe the mangaka just never found that magic again, or maybe they did, but it just really wasn't enough. And I could believe that, because once again, the first few chapters of this book are very, very uninteresting. And even when you get to this point that I found interesting, it's still not groundbreaking enough to really make you want to commit to this manga. Now, it's still like a fun, entertaining read, and I probably will continue reading it, because at this point, I kind of want to see how it plays out and see what the ebbs and flows are. So hopefully the writing does get better and this turns to maybe an underappreciated gem, though I doubt it. Anyway, that's been the video for today. This is something a little bit different than what I would normally do, but in reading these 2 volumes over the last like week or so, this idea just stuck with me about how a book got a little bit better in this moment, but it's still just overall like not a good book. But being able to highlight like a bright spot in this particular book, something that's like a little bit more interesting. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and click that like button. Let me know that you fucks with your boy the long way. And of course, if you like this or any of my other content, do me a favor, go ahead and click that subscribe button, man. It does a lot to really help push my channel out. You know, I'm just a little lowly YouTuber trying to make it on these spaces. I don't make these videos for money. I make them for fun because I want to interact with you guys. And with that said, go ahead and drop me a comment down there. Tell me what you thought of Astro Royale, or maybe recommend a book that you think is even better than this one, because this one sucks. So the bar is pretty fucking low. It is surprising that an experienced mangaka could come back after making a hit and produce something so mediocre. But I guess that's just the way it goes, man. And I do wish him all the success. I'm not gonna keep trying to say the name because I can't say it, but I do wish him all the success. I hope that he finds another groundbreaking book, because honestly, Tokyo Revengers was great. I even kind of enjoyed the ending because I like the characters, and any reason to see Baji again because that's my man crush, like, you know, I'm gonna be down with that because Baji's my boy. You my boy, Baji. You feel me? Anyway, if you enjoyed this, go ahead, click that subscribe button, and I'm gonna keep trying to deliver you this fire content that I know that you love. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. Of course, I release new videos every other Thursday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So be on the lookout for that. As I always say, let's continue to talk about what we like, what we don't, and everything in between. And until next time, peace.